Now, the Doctor, the lead character in the Doctor Who series, is a time-travelling alien who is not bound by the physical world. Yet the BBC, intent on bringing it all down to identity politics. This week, it was revealed that transgender actress Yasmin Finney will join the show as the Doctor's new companion, hot on the heels of their announcement that actor Ncuti Gatwa will become the first black lead of the show. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for the best person getting the part, and apparently Gatwa was dazzling in his audition, but it just feels a bit like the BBC will not make a casting call these days without some sort of agenda behind it. For the past 5 years or so, the identity of the Doctor has dominated commentary of the show, and it ramped up when Peter Capaldi announced he was stepping down as the Doctor in 2017. The mainstream media insisted that his replacement can and must be a woman, black or both, and said that producers had an urgent choice to avoid casting another white man. Cue Jodie Whittaker being cast as the first ever female Doctor. And it's not just the targeted hiring, raising eyebrows. The preachy storylines like the damage of microplastics on the planet have had viewers reaching for the remote. So with ratings at their worst in the show's near 60 years of existence, has Doctor Who gone a little bit too woke? Let me know your thoughts by emailing me, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me at GBNews and vote in our poll. While you're there, I'll bring you the results very shortly. But weighing in on this now, co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona, the political commentator Connor Tomlinson, and former Doctor Who star, the actor Peter Purves. So, Peter, look, you were in Doctor Who for 46 episodes on the BBC between 1965 and 1966, alongside the original Doctor, William Hartnell. What do you think of the show now?
Well, it's a very different show. Television was very young back in the 60s. It was not, the serial was half an hour episodes, cliffhanger at the end of each episode, and I liked it that way. Things move on. I think technology's got in the way of it an awful lot recently. And you were mentioning Jodie Whittaker causing quite a stir when she was cast. I don't know why. I think it was probably inevitable at some time, because it's fiction. It's not real, for goodness sake. It's a fictional science fiction story. And so you can do anything you like. If you can regenerate the Doctor, you can regenerate him into anything. It could be absolutely anything. So I don't think it was a mistake to cast her. I waited till she performed, and I thought she was very good. And at that point, there's no more discussion. The acting was the important thing. And I think the same thing applies now with the fact with Ncuti Gatwa being cast. I don't see the problem. I'll wait till I see him. I'd never heard of him, to be honest. So I'll wait and see what his performance is. If it's good, great. If it's not, I'd probably say so. But, I mean, it won't be anything to do with his colour. I've been in this business a long time. I did my first professional acting job in 1957, and I've never considered gender, race or colour, absolutely ever, to come in the way of what I'm watching.
And it shouldn't.
The acting is the importance.
But I guess the concern is, does that come into consideration when the BBC is making its decisions? Connor Tomlinson, you say Doctor Who has been ruined by what you describe as historical revisionism. What do you mean?
Well, I unfortunately disagree with Peter, all due respect. He's been an instrumental part of the series since its inception. Unfortunately, the Doctor Who writers, like Chris Chibnall, the showrunner, doesn't have the same respect for William Hartnell, the first Doctor. In The Timeless Children, the last episode of Series 12, they retconned that the Doctor had always secretly been a black woman and was actually the first Time Lord of all time, and we're going to go back and ruin the legacy of those people that came before. Also, when Jodie Whittaker was cast, Stephen Moffat blamed, quote, Brexit voters for why it took so long to cast a female actress, and said there must be 2 black co-stars in the TARDIS for progress. Actually, Stephen Moffat read a quote. In terms of historical revisionism, there's an amazing thing here I have to read at length. Quote, after he did the episode, it was the Frost Fair one in season 10, when there were a lot of black people attending the Frost Fair in Victorian England, something we wouldn't care about for colourblind casting in the future, but in the past it's just not true. He said, we've kind of got to tell a lie. We'll go back into history, and there will be black people where historically there wouldn't have been, and we won't dwell on that. We'll say to hell with it. This is the imaginary, better version of the world. By believing in it, we'll summon it forth. I don't think the world gets better by telling lies. It's a shame that there was historical injustice and racism in the past, but we can't solve that in the present and out into the future by lying about what happened before.
Albie Amankoni, you disagree?
Well, I think Connor's got a very vivid imagination. Look, all that happened this week was the BBC released a press release saying that two of the most successful actors, British actors, of the last 2 years in hit Netflix series Sex Education and Heartstopper have been cast in one of the United Kingdom's most loved television shows, Doctor Who. I completely agree with Peter. It's absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Ncuti is black. It's absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Yasmin is trans. It's just to do with the fact that they are good actors. They've had very good views on Netflix, and now the BBC wants to recreate that magic.
The issue I have, Albie, is that their announcement wasn't about the fact that they were just great actors. It's the BBC who put such a focus on identity politics with every
Did you read the press release, Dan?
Well, I did, and I saw all of the coverage around it, and it was made very, very clear, as Connor's just pointed out, by Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies, where they want to take the series. And it's also in terms of how these decisions and these hirings are reported on, too, because we saw it in the White House this week, Albie. You know, there's a new lesbian black press secretary.
And I thought that was...
all of the coverage and all of the rhetoric is around the fact that she's lesbian and black. I say that should make no difference. I'm actually a little bit sick of hearing about actors' traits rather than just why they're good for the job, and that's what annoys me.
So am I. I'm annoyed about it, but actually, Dan, if you read the press release, it mentions nothing about the fact that Ncuti is the first black Doctor Who. It mentions nothing about the fact
all about it on
that Yasmin... Well, in the press release, it doesn't mention it at all.
It doesn't. The BBC article,
it does not. The press release, which the BBC released earlier this week, 2 press releases, doesn't mention their protected characteristics at all, and yet here Connor is talking about them. And it's really just about the acting. These are 2 young actors at the beginning of their careers embarking on a very exciting journey, and I wish we could all just be happy for them. I certainly am.
Peter Purves, you wanted to respond to what Connor Tomlinson had to say.
Well, yeah, I did agree with him to a certain extent, but basically what he's saying is the scripts weren't good enough. And as far as Jodie was concerned, when she was in the show, I think the thing that let her down most were the scripts. Yeah. I thought they were poor.
They were rubbish.
And it just didn't work. It wasn't. It never drew me into it. I wasn't drawn into it. And I won't be drawn into the new series until I will see the first episode. I want to see what the actors are like. That's important. Having been in the show and going to conventions and various things around the place, it's important that I know who's in it and what they're doing. But I don't have to agree with it, and I don't have to like it, and I don't think the scripts have been good enough. I've got a sneaky feeling with Russell T Davies back in the driving seat, we might get scripts that might be a little bit better. I see you shaking your head.
But Connor Tomlinson, isn't the whole reason that the scripts were so bad is because there was a desperation to include all of these woke social issues rather than actually just thinking, what's a good story to tell?
Exactly. Jodie Whittaker's first season focused entirely, as we said before, on historical revisionism. They were all period dramas going back into the past, beating the British audience over the head about American racism or colonialism and how they were all implicated in the historical injustices of the past. And now Russell T Davies, who got up on stage recently accepting an award for It's a Sin, saying the LGB alliance was committing trans genocide by cutting out the T and killing, will not improve the amount of identity politics in these stories. And the reason, Peter, these stories are terrible, is because they're going by the doctrine of representation. And Albie, I'm so glad you brought up protected characteristics, because this is why we have not got characters on screen. There was an academic who's in a lot of the BBC's diversity training and all that. His name is Charles R. Lawrence, and he said, "We must flood the marketplace with our stories to shape a new public discourse. That discourse is about systemic racism." He's a critical race theorist. Now, what happens is, when you have people who have protected characteristics in stories, it would be racist, sexist, etc., for all the audience on Twitter that are going to complain at you and cancel you if you put them through some hardship. So they automatically become heroes without ever undergoing a hero's journey. Well, if your identity membership...
with Disney recently, too.
Well, exactly. And if your identity membership means that you're a hero by de facto of being black, not straight, a woman, then what does that make the villains? It makes them automatically straight, white and male. So I don't want to watch a show that says I am no better than a Dalek because of how I was born.
And Albie, in fairness, Brits have voted with their remotes on the woke Doctor Who. I mean, the ratings have been dire. The moment that it went woke, people switched off, Albie. Go woke, go broke. It's the same thing for Doctor Who.
I can't speak for the writing during the time that Jodie Whittaker was cast, but I do know that linear TV ratings have been falling since about 2010, independent of the content that we're seeing on the screens. Look, the simple fact of the matter is Russell T Davies was the writer who relaunched Doctor Who for people in mine and Connor's generation. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with the television show in 2023. I think it's a bit ridiculous to get this wound up about something which we haven't even seen yet. The BBC's released a press release, I repeat, a press release. That is all that's happened, and Connor's got his knickers in a twist. So let's wait and see what the content is, and then perhaps we can have another discussion once we've seen the 60th anniversary series in 2023.
OK, we will. That was co-founder of Conservative.
It's worth also saying, that the historical revisionism which has gone on. Back in the day, I can tell you that the serials that were least popular were the historical ones. It was the science fiction nonsense that they preferred. They like the monsters and all the rest, the ones that got the poorest audiences, which were much more fun to perform. They were great to do. They didn't get the audiences. It's probably the same thing now. And I think that the programme is technologically very, very brilliant, but I don't like it.
No, it's a very good point. And you know what you're talking about here, Peter Purves, who was, of course, an actor who appeared in 46 episodes of the Doctor Who series between 1965 and 1966. A pleasure to have you alongside the co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amann-Kona, and the political commentator Connor Tomlinson. So who do you agree with on this? Well, Scarlett on Twitter says they've ruined this once great series. It should be renamed Dr. What? From Post on Twitter, the writing's on the wall for the Cybermen and the Master is obviously problematic. And Beachdale writes, glad I stopped paying the licence fee years ago. If I had not, this would have been the point of no return for me. And your verdict is now in. 94% of you agree that Doctor Who has gone too woke. Just 6% of you say it hasn't. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.